Chapter 10. The Confluence of the Mattawa. The days on the Ottawa River passed in a rushing blur. Life for Pierre was reduced to water and sky and the churning paddles of the bright, proud canoes. "It will get easier before you know it, Pierre," Lalande insisted more times than the boy could count. But for Pierre, the days got longer and harder. A cold front moved in, and each morning there was a heavy coating of frost on the canoes and a rim of ice at the river's edge. The voyagers woke up cursing the cold as they brushed ice crystals from their mustaches. The bright chill reminded Pierre of a Christmas when Father took him and Camille on a sleigh ride. Father hitched their plow horse to an old wooden sledge, and as they started up a spruce-lined trail, Camille and Pierre cheered. On the way home, they sang loud carols and giggled when Father drove so fast that the snow stung their cheeks, and Camille's hair blew straight back and tickled Pierre's nose. Lalande reminded Pierre of the joy his father had shown that Christmas long ago. Every day was a holiday to Lalande. No matter how much the rest of the crew complained, he stayed cheerful. "There's no finer weather than this," he preached to Pierre. "No bugs, no rain, bright mornings made for hard paddling." Just when Pierre was convinced he would see no relief from the cold, the weather suddenly changed. On their first day on the Mattawa River, they awoke to the coldest weather yet. By afternoon, however, the wind shifted to the south. The men had their shirts off, and their backs were soon glistened in the sun. That evening, as the brigade rounded a quick bend, Beloit spotted a deer swimming across the river. "Supper off the port bow," he sang out. The young doe saw the canoe bearing down and pumped her legs violently to escape. Beloit aimed his pistol and fired. Pierre winced, but there was only a click. The men, starved for meat, let out a collective groan. Recalling Bellegarde's duck soup and trying to imagine how the cook might fit a deer into his kettle, Pierre secretly cheered for the animal to escape. Beloit tossed his gun aside and grabbed a metal-shoed setting pole. He swung hard, catching the deer flush on the head. The animal went limp, and the men howled with joy. Pierre shuddered when he heard the deer's skull crack. The violence stunned him. Here was a gentle, warm day at last, he thought, spoiled by sudden blood. It wasn't that he'd never seen a deer killed. Since he'd turned 10, he had hunted deer and rabbits and grouse with his father. Nearly everyone in Lachine depended on wild game, especially venison, to supplement their diets. But this rude killing, made worse no doubt by Beloit's hands, violated the peace of the day. To Pierre, it was like witnessing a murder in a church. The men were totally unbothered, and on shore a holiday atmosphere prevailed. Everyone whistled and sang as they gathered firewood. The only tense moment came when Bellegarde approached the deer carcass with his dirty knife, and Lalande yelled, "Hands off!" "The cooking's my job," Bellegarde insisted. Beloit added, "You tend to your soup pot." The cook withdrew, grumbling, and before the fire had even burned down to coals, Beloit and Lalande gutted, skinned, and quartered the deer. Soon the smell of roasted venison was overpowering the stale odor of boiled corn. The men looked ready to bite off a half-cooked hunk. Beloit teased them, saying, "This meat's for our canoe. You can do your own hunting." La Petite said, "It's not funny to joke with starving men." "Who's joking?" countered Beloit. "Nobody's ever starved on a diet of good boiled corn." Despite the teasing, there was meat enough for everyone. After one tentative taste, Pierre tore into a juicy slab, not even noticing that he burned the roof of his mouth on the sizzling fat. When he was finished, Pierre sat back and looked at the savage men around him. Emil's face was slick with grease, and his curly hair was capless for a change. The back of Beloit's hands were still bloody from his butchering, but he sat unbothered, as always, by his uncleanliness. The rest of the crew sat in the flickering fire, grinning like wolves sated by a fresh kill. Lalande stood up and patted his bulging stomach. "Looks like we have a little extra cargo to Portage tomorrow, my friend." Pierre smiled and wiped the grease from his own face with his shirt sleeve. Then he crawled towards the shelter of his canoe, anxious for the comfort of sleep.